Go, 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 go.
3, 2, 1, 4 tires.
Still there, inside.
What a jump! What a jump!
The track is wet. It's good.
Still there, clear.
3, 2, 1. Green flag, green flag.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Four and Field podcast. I'm your host, Dom Caplupo, joined by Steve Ray, Sam Dooley, and Wesley Riddle. We are here for a 2026 Richard Childress Racing season preview. Your two guys, Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch. Between the both of them, plus additional races by Jesse Love. Was it Jesse Love and Austin Hill? They had 80 races, 1 win, 4 top 5s, 16 top 10s, an average finish of 20.1, and an average start of 20.1, no poles, and 207 laps led for Richard Childress Racing.
And so I'll start off breaking down our two wonderful drivers that we have for Richard Childress Racing. Starting with Austin Dillon's stats. He had 36 races. He finished 15th in points because last year we had that darn playoff system. Don't have that anymore, thank God. He finished 32nd in 2024, probably close to where he would have finished this year had there not been playoffs. He had 1 win, surprise, surprise, at Richmond. He had the same win in 2024 at Richmond, except he killed 2 people to do it. He had 1 top 5. Guess what? In 2024, he also had 1 top 5. It's just Richmond. 5 top 10s, same as 2024. His average finish was 20.81, which was slightly better than his 22.56 from a year ago. His average start was 20.1, which was actually worse than 2024. No poles, 3 DNFs, same as the year before. 119 laps led. He only had 36 in 2024, and 35 of them were at Richmond. And he led 1 at Talladega Falls. I know we have on here, Dillon only led 12 laps outside of his win at Richmond. Shocker. 8 laps at Nashville and 4 laps at Daytona. There's not much to say here. If I'm being quite frank, Austin Dillon is there because his last name is Dillon, and the Dillons are descendants of the Childresses. And so Austin Dillon has a ride for that reason. RCR as a whole, cheeks. Austin Dillon, he's not making it any better. Let's just put it that way. He may not be the worst driver that we have, because we've already talked about Riley Herbst and we haven't gotten to Cody Ware yet. So he's not the worst driver, but he's taking a 35th place car and finishing 35th. And, it's kind of like Kyle Busch is going out there and taking a 30th place car and finishing, 20th and just being pissed about it. Austin Dillon is a Richmond merchant, and that's pretty much all of his stats. There's not really much to say. Looking forward into 2026, an improvement would to be better at racing a stock car, maybe. I can't really look forward with any seriousness that Austin Dillon will be any sort of championship threat or even a chance to make the chase, really, unless we go out there and run 26 Richmond races to start the season. Then we could see it, but yeah, Austin Dillon. I don't know what to tell you. Just not really, obviously, a favorite of any sort, and really, he hasn't been good in 2026. If he just gets marginally better, it really doesn't matter. He's in year 12 or whatever. It's not like he's going to lose that ride. He'll be there forever, and then he'll transition into taking over RCR eventually. That's just kind of the route that it looks like it's going. Or he'll at least be somewhere in the management. I'd say make that pretty soon, because you're just actively hurting RCR the longer that you're there. and RCR as a whole already is hurting just because they suck. So that's Austin Dillon. Any other thoughts from anybody? I really don't know how much more there is to add to Austin Dillon.
In 2024, Austin Dillon said there were wholesale changes, big changes coming to Richard Childress Racing in the offseason going into 2025. Now, whatever changes they made obviously didn't do the job because this team couldn't even average a top 20 finish with even the likes of Kyle Busch in there. And I don't know what Austin Dillon's plans are moving forward when you're in, 12 years into your Cup Series career. There's not much more improving you're really going to see with all these young guys coming in and just kind of taking the spotlight and kind of just really flying by you in terms of progression in the Cup cars. We've had a few different cars for Austin Dillon to drive, and it hasn't been there for him. And yeah, he's the best driver at Richmond in the next gen car, but yeah, other than that, it's really hard to hype up Austin Dillon to do anything better than finish in the top 20 in points.
I feel like even that will be a struggle because, like Sam alluded to when he's going over the statistics, 32nd in points the year before, and really only finished 15th in points. One, because Josh Berry finished last the first 3 races of the playoffs. Otherwise, Dillon would have finished 16th, and that was really the only reason why he got to the top 16 was because of his win at Richmond. Otherwise, it would have been another year of hanging back near 30th in points. Now, Austin, with his rookie year being 2014, that was the first year of the playoff or elimination style. So this is going to be his first year, surprisingly, going with a chase format, but he's not even going to sniff anywhere close to the top 16 in points. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There's no light at all. It's complete darkness. There's really nothing positive that I can say or any signs of encouragement that show that 2026 is going to be any different than it has been. When you look at RCR as a whole outside of Dale Earnhardt and Kevin Harvick, the statistics get pretty bleak after those 2 drivers. So Austin certainly hasn't helped those statistics at all. And yeah, I think Sam put it perfectly. Just one word to kind of sum up how Austin Dillon has been in recent years, the majority of his Cup career: cheeks. That's a perfect way to put it.
And if you just look at the trajectory of where, and you both kind of highlighted it, the trajectory to where Richard Childress has gone, it's just been downhill, like ever since the next gen. And Dom, you mentioned the changes of leadership. It may have helped them finish, a little more consistently throughout week to week, but it wasn't anything to really make it more of a benefit for either of them. And, across all 36 races, you look at the teams that have been able to leapfrog them. Spire, I feel like, is one of them. Now, I know they haven't won, but I think just seeing what they're able to do as a team is on the upswing. You look at RFK and the leadership changes they've made there. It's slowly but surely working. It's going upwards. And then if Richard Childress Racing made a bunch of changes this offseason, are they going to leapfrog the teams that are ahead of them right now? The answer is probably no. It's just going to be too big of a challenge. So I think it's going to be very tough. It's just crazy that I've always thought it's weird how Austin Dillon, the track he's best at is arguably the hardest on the circuit. Like, I know we're critical of him, but he's still not a bad driver. Like, he still has the ability. And I've always been I've said this before. I think he's just gotten too complacent being at RCR, knowing that he'll take over leadership one day. I think he could have been a great driver if he would have stepped away from the team. but he's just kind of relegated to being content with mediocrity, and that's just going to hurt him, and the rest of this year, 2026, and then if he ends up racing onward from now, it's just not going to play into his cards at all. So there's just no upswing, and for that, it's just going to be a hard year. But he uh he definitely would do better in leadership. I feel like that the changes, if he could step into a position for Richard Childress, just being in the now and knowing what's going on and knowing that the team needs to make changes that Richard Childress hasn't made, he could definitely be a guy to take that team in a right direction.
What
So
what concerns me about the direction that they're going, and knowing that Austin most likely one day is going to be running the organization, is that when he steps into a leadership role, and this isn't anything against him personally, but just thinking out loud, right? You're going to make these sort of changes, or you're going to make these decisions, but you're going to try to make them off of the experiences that you had. Well, your experiences that you've had have been finishing in, the back half of the 20s to 30s in points. And so how is that going to reflect? You're trying to be the best organization out there, but with all the struggles that they've had, what decisions are you going to make to help elevate your team to become that premier organization? So that's the first thing. I would say that the second thing that RCR, um, probably the biggest mistake that they've made in recent memory, was allowing Tyler Reddick to leave and go out the door. I know that, 2311 money had to, they had to sign a fat check for Tyler Reddick to get him to come over, because he even signed that deal still with a year to go left on the RCR deal, and he got let out of that. But I think that was a huge mistake for RCR to let Reddick leave and not sign him to a long-term deal, because he he was going to help bring RCR back to a weekly relevancy. And we saw that with, I mean, he got 3 wins in a year with RCR. And granted, Kyle Busch had that 1 year, his first year there. But we've even seen the last 2 years. I know we'll talk about Kyle in a second here, but I think that was a huge mistake, letting Reddick go. So hopefully one day when Austin gets to leadership, because we know that that's inevitable, that they don't make a similar mistake.
all right. So talk about Austin Dillon and leadership. Is this Austin Dillon's final year in the number 3 car?
I don't think so. We were looking at it before the episode here, and it does look like that this is the last year in his contract. I, for some reason, definitely think that he should step down. I just don't think that he's going to. And yeah, it's time. I mean, he's beyond the time of needing to hang up his driving suit, but I just think that it's going to be a stubborn decision, and he wants to keep racing. So I think that he's going to keep coming back for like these 1-2 year deals, to the point where the wheels are just going to fall off of it completely.
I'll switch it up and say yes. Um, this is if there's going to be a year where he could step away, I feel like this would be the year, just with how the direction and shift in NASCAR is going. If Austin has that leadership mindset and looks at what the chase is going to be and how long it's going to be around, he's probably sitting back and asking himself, if I'm going to take over for Richard Childress, am I going to be able to make the chase and be able to sustain the finances and be able to put out the best cars each week to be able to make it and be competitive on a weekly basis? The answer is no. He's not going to be able to. So if he's thinking of the big picture and smart about it, then he would step away at the end of this year. I'm going to say he would. And I think the smart decision would be to get Jesse Love in the car as fast as possible, regardless of what Kyle Busch's plans are. Go ahead and get the guy that won the championship, a guy that's on the rise. Obviously, not the Zillish of the world, not the Corey Haim of the world, but a guy that's won a championship and going to be a guy that can make that next step into the Cup Series.
Yeah, I think is he gonna be in the car in 2027? I think so. Should he be? I don't think so. I think that he needs to step out. He needs to go ahead and transition to that leadership role. Like he gave it a good run. I mean, like he doesn't seem like he's really an asshole or anything. So like, I'd still like to see him around NASCAR. It's just I don't think he really needs to be in the car anymore. And I think he could do some good stuff in leadership. He's obviously, since he's been in the car, he could try and help talk to some of the older brass that may be there that doesn't really understand how they need to move forward to get into things. Because like we mentioned RFK earlier, and when Keselowski got there, they modernized. They did a lot of things that the old guys were either unwilling or whatever to do. They started modernizing the program, and now look where they are. They're competing for wins. They're competing in what was the playoffs. I assume they'll compete in the chase. They're up there all the time. And so that shows kind of the value of having someone who's recently been a driver be in your front office, so to speak. So I don't think that he's going to hang it up. I think he'll probably do a few more years, but I think he should. It would be best for the entire program of RCR if he did.
I wanted to throw a fast fact in there just to look real quick. Austin Dillon's had 3 top 10 or 3 top 5s in the last 3 years. One of those top 5s came at Bristol Dirt. The other 2 were wins at Richmond, the only track he's truly competitive at. Is that acceptable for any race team in the Cup Series? The answer is no. And look at Tyler Reddick's last year for RCR. Look at Kyle Busch just in 2025. I know it wasn't a great year. Reddick's last year RCR, Kyle Busch's 2025 season, they both had 3 or more top 5s. And that's Austin Dillon in 108 races. So if you want to keep racing for the team and losing money that way, then go right ahead. I know sponsorship's important, but it's also about longevity, and there's not going to be longevity if he sticks around.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think Austin's smart enough to kind of get out after this contract. I think he will. You can't wait too long because you want to be able to go under the reins of Richard Childress, while Richard is still active and at the racetrack. I kind of just go under his wing for a couple years before it's kind of your team. Make sure you're comfortable once it is your team and you don't have to kind of go into panic mode if anything were to happen and you're just kind of thrown into the fire and then have to make tough decisions because of, just anything happening. Well, Richard has a change of heart. He's like, all right, I'm done with this. Here, Austin, just take it. You don't want that to happen if you're Austin Dillon. So I'll say his last season in the 3-car will be this year.
And that's going to take us into our second Richard Childress Racing driver, which is Kyle Busch. We've talked about him a little bit already, but we're going to dive into some stats here. 36 races. He finished 1 spot lower in 2025 in points. He finished 21st to 2024's 20th in points. Another winless season for him, 2 back-to-back winless seasons. I don't think he had a winless season his entire Cup career. And then the last 2 years, obviously, just for him, things haven't panned out. So it's been a very unfortunate situation for Kyle Busch, just not being able to get back to not even the glory, but just being able to be on the mountaintop for one weekend. He hasn't been there. 3 top 5s. I mentioned that a minute ago. That's lower than 2024. His total was 5. He had 10 top 10s, which actually did match. So he was up front at times. Finished the season pretty strong, better than what he was at times in the middle of the year. His average finish was 17.94, actually improved upon 24, where he had an 18.31 average finish. And his average start took a little bit of a dip, 17.5 to 2024's 16.9. So no poles, and only two DNFs. I thought that was pretty good. He was able to get to the finish line a lot more than the competitors because there were a lot of guys that DNF this year. So he's able to keep it on the track, but that should tell you they don't have the pace. They're missing something. Another thing that tells you he doesn't have the pace: 88 laps led. 2024 he led 230 laps. I couldn't even tell you where those 88 laps came from. I think a lot of them were Coda. And that was the only real race he showed up and looked like he was going to be able to be a threat for the win. But the tire strategy there at the end didn't work out for him. So he enters this year on a 93 race winless streak. It's the longest winless streak of his career. His last win came at Gateway in 2023, the year in which he won 3 times. Um, those wins were, especially the Gateway, that was impressive. I think California and Talladega were a little more luck based, just with how those races played out with the draft. But at Gateway, he really showed what he's capable of, and I think it's still there. It's just a matter of if he can find it again. So it's again a situation of a guy. I don't think we're fully seeing what Kyle could do in this car. I know it's not as good for him as the next gen, or I'm sorry, as the Gen 6 was, but I still think if opportunity did present itself for Kyle Busch, if it was away from Richard Childress, he could definitely win. Like he still has it. It's just the circumstances and the situation the ride he's in right now. Slow cars go slow, fast cars go fast. Kyle's in a slower car than half the field. He's going to finish, worse than half the field. So, um, I think he's still got it. I don't think that he's really diminished aside from just kind of, you know, being put in a poor situation. So hopefully Kyle can have a good 26.
Yeah, I still have belief in Kyle Busch. Obviously, as the guy that I grew up watching him either dominating or he was one of the big three. Like it's obvious that he's still got the talent. I don't know how much. It's hard to tell how much age has really affected him because, like Wes said, slow cars are slow, right? So it's hard to see this as a combination of kind of age and the car because of just the giant that he is in my head of how great his peak was. Uh, but I think that he still has it in him. Like looking forward into 2026, I wouldn't be shocked if he won a race or two. Because he just needs. They need to put a car underneath him because I don't. I think the age may have taken a little of the edge off. I think. Do I think that mid 2010s Kyle Busch is winning in this car? I think he could rip one off. I think he could rip a race or two. Just he was that good. He was that awesome. I think that age may have taken a little bit off of that portion, right? But I don't think it took off this much. Obviously, he's not in a good car right now, so it's just it is really sad to see for I'm sure everyone kind of has the same kind of idea. Everyone hated Kyle Busch, right? And then now just seeing him not be able to win is so much worse than watching him win and just be an asshole. Because at least he showed some personality, and now he just seems sad and a little weird on social media. But that's a whole different topic. It's just I really do hope that RCR can put a car underneath him that is up to the talent level that he has, because he really deserves to be running up front for wins and to kind of go out these last few years that he has, go out on top as a winner, because that's what he's been his whole career. And really, it's not fully his fault that he's in the situation that he's in. So, it's sad to see Kyle Busch kind of the route that he's stuck in right now.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago where we were basically counting down the days until he would tie Dale Earnhardt in wins. It just seemed like a given that he was gonna tie and surpass Dale Earnhardt with 76 career wins, and now that's almost impossible just from the position Kyle Busch is in right now. And realistically, you look at the career win total, there's a chance now that someone like Denny Hamlin could pass him in career wins. Hamlin has 60, Kyle Busch has 63. So it's really by the end of 2026, we could see Denny Hamlin kind of go past Kyle Busch in career wins, even though Kyle Busch had the 2-year head start on Denny Hamlin in the Cup Series. It's upsetting for sure. And a good Kyle Busch, a competitive Kyle Busch is much better for NASCAR. And the only thing is, the decline didn't really start when he got into that 8 car. You kind of saw it after he won his championship in 2019. I mean, in 2020, he wasn't one of the guys. He wasn't Harvick or Denny Hamlin that year. 2021, he wasn't really a top 5 guy all season. And in 2022, he almost went winless that season if he didn't get that win at Texas in the fall after he was already eliminated from the playoffs. So I wouldn't say it was just a fall off, the face of the earth in one shot. It was just kind of a slow decline, which kind of might have helped get him out of Joe Gibbs Racing. And I mean, he had those 3 wins in 2023, but yeah, RCR is really bad, and that's the majority of it. But Kyle Busch definitely lost a little something after that second championship as well.
I really got nothing else to add. I think you guys all hit the nail on the head there. It's like you said, Dom, a good Kyle Busch is good for NASCAR. A vocal Kyle Busch, someone who's, who, when we think of Kyle Busch, we think of the guy that's not afraid to push people around. It just seems different now. It seems like the spark. I know inside of Kyle, the spark is not lost, but that's what it appears like on the outside, where, only, 10 top fives, three top fives, 10 top tens on the year is not going to cut it. So certainly the 8 team now, the big change for the 8 team this year, Randall Burnett going to Trackhouse to be Connor Zilich's crew chief. So they pulled Jim Pullman, who was Justin Allgaier's crew chief, one of the best crew chiefs in that O'Reilly garage, is now coming up to be paired with Kyle Busch in the Cup Series. So new crew chief for Kyle this year. It usually takes a little bit of time for crew chief and a driver to get their rhythm under them, figure out the best ways to communicate, things like that, and go through the motions. So I think we'll see a little bit of a slow start for Kyle. But certainly, with 88 laps led and an average finish of almost 18th, it's not going to be good enough. You can't replicate these statistics and think that you're going to make the chase. Certainly, won't win the championship with stuff like that.
All right. So Kyle Busch, will he win in 2026, and will he be back at RCR in 27?
I'm going to say I just don't see enough from RCR as an organization. Would I want to see Kyle Busch win? Yeah, I think it's good for the sport, but realistically, with how bad RCR is as an organization, I don't see it happening. Do I see him back in 27? No. I mean, reports that we hear from more of the inside reporters, your Bianchis, your Jeff Glucks, and things like that, there really wasn't much movement driver wise in 26, but it sounds like 27 is going to be the year where we could see a lot of shifting of rides and things like that. I think any team would be lucky to have a driver with the caliber of talent like Kyle Busch. So do I think he'll win in 26? No. Do I think he's going to be back to RCR in 27? Also, no. Somebody else is going to be in it. And it better be Jesse Love. And you don't need to let another talent walk out the door.
Yeah, I think I'll go with the same sentiment that Steve has. I want him to win one. Just like it's getting sad, like really sad at this point. I don't think he will. RCR sucks. Um, in terms of 2027, if RCR is as bad this year as they have been, I don't want to see him there again. And I think that he'll be able to see that if he doesn't have a ride that's somewhere that's at least a little bit better, I don't think we see him back. Um, I don't. He's definitely not going to come back to RCR. I don't even know if we see him come back in general. Um, if there's not an upward trajectory ride, because um, like we're looking at the potential of RCR not having either of their drivers, because we've had this conversation with both drivers that we've talked about so far, and so that would be an interesting dynamic to look at. But like with Kyle Busch, like I don't know what's going on in his head. Obviously, I'm not Kyle Busch. But I if I was Kyle Busch, which I'm a few $1,000,000 away from being Kyle Busch, but if I was, uh, I'd I mean you got to salvage what's left of kind of the legacy. You don't want to go out like Darrell Waltrip did. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but Darrell Waltrip, he had obviously lost it. Plus, he was in a bad car, and that's kind of what we're seeing with Kyle Busch. And if he takes another step, because I don't think RCR will bring it back, because I think Austin Dillon will stay for another year, a few years in 27 and onward, and I think they do need to bring Jesse Love up before they lose him. I think Kyle Busch will be the one to go, and I don't want to see Kyle Busch somewhere like Spire or something like that. No, nothing against Spire, right? But it's kind of a lateral movement at best. Um, and as he declines, he kind of needs more of a ride that's gonna be able to uplift his skills, right? As opposed to him uplifting what the car can give him. So it's sad to say, but I don't really see him winning this year, and I don't see him maybe not even being in the Cup Series full time in 2027.
It'll be crazy if they both step away, and then it opens the door for two full-time drivers that are new. Jesse Love's going to get a seat, I feel like, no matter what, just with his capturing of the title. I think this year will be a big proving ground for him, just to be able to get more wins and compete again, to be able to take a championship. Um, I think he's leapfrogged Austin Hill. I'd rather have Jesse Love. I think everybody would rather have Jesse Love in their car than Austin Hill. Um, Although if both seats open, they both could step in there. I think if Austin Dillon were to step away and go into a leadership position, and there might be talks about it already, I feel like that might convince Kyle to stay a little bit more than it would if Austin stayed in the seat. Um, I think it's a matter of what other doors might open. Kyle could resign somewhere else, but is he fine with signing something that is a lateral move like Aspire, maybe for a higher paycheck? But you know, they've been able to kind of rebuild the like chemistry with Richard Childress, and I think with Austin Dillon. And I'm not sure if Kyle entirely hates being there. Obviously, the performance isn't great, but he might be fine with that just being his last gig in the Cup Series. If instead of taking another step, having to kind of rebuild everything over again, all for what, right? Maybe not a whole lot. So I'm gonna say I'll switch it up and say maybe he does stay. I think maybe he will stay a couple more years. I don't think he's ready to retire from the Cup Series yet. I feel like Richard Childress would want to keep him. I think Austin Dillon would definitely want to keep him. Um, and yeah, I if he goes anywhere, it'll either be Sam what you said, Spire, or retirement. Not retirement, but just having to step away because there's not another opportunity. So, but I'll stay. I'll say he will stick around. I think he'll. I think there's a good chance if Austin steps away, Kyle stays. I don't think they'd want two replacements, two brand new faces in back-to-back years, and I think that would be good if Austin did step away. Jesse steps in, then Jesse and Kyle, young and new. I think that would be, or young and veteran. I think it'd be very beneficial for the team. So
Kyle Busch, go win the Daytona 500. Like, if it's anything that we need as a sport, Kyle Busch, go win the 500. I mean, this is your chance. Go break this winless streak and just get that crown jewel, get that last thing you need marked off for your career. Go win the 500 this year. I think you will. So I'll go with a win this year for Kyle Busch, and I do think they kind of Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon, it kind of teeter totters. If Kyle Busch leaves, I think Austin Dillon stays. If Kyle Busch stays, then Austin Dillon will give the ride to Jesse Love. I think that's just how it is. I agree that they probably don't want to put two new guys in the cars for the team. But honestly, can it get any worse? I don't think it can. So if they do that, then maybe it might benefit themselves getting Austin Hill or another guy and then Jesse Love in the cars as well. And that's been a Richard Childress Racing 2026 season preview. Make sure you're following the Four and Field Podcast at Four and Field Podcast on all social media platforms. Again, the goal before the Daytona 500, 1,000 followers on TikTok. Wow, we're getting there. We're over 900 followers. If you haven't already, go over there and follow. If you're watching on YouTube here, make sure you're commenting. What do you think about RCR? What do you think about Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon? Leave a like as well. And if you're on Spotify and Apple listening, make sure you're leaving a comment there and giving us a 5-star review on there. Moving forward, we're halfway home. 3 weeks left of previews before the Daytona 500. RFK Inspire will be next week on Monday and Thursday. Then, the week after that, we have the Clash that we're going to talk about. Then, on Tuesday and Thursday that week, you'll have the Legacy and Colleague season previews. And then, in our final week of team previews, it'll be Front Row. And then you'll have a combination of Hayek, Haas, and Rick Ware Racing, leading us into our full season predictions and then the Daytona 500 preview podcast right 2 days before the Daytona 500. So, for Sam, Wes, Steve, I'm Dom, and we'll see you next week to talk RFK.